and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going through famous popular books and if I think they are worth you reading or not. Now, before I begin, I just wanted to say, please remember that these are my opinions. If you think differently about these books, that is totally okay. There is going to be a mixture of books I love in here, books I don't really like and I don't really think are worth the read. But yeah, also before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you so much for 400 subscribers. I cannot believe that we have hit that. It happened so quick. So if you're new, please make sure to give this video a like so I know you're enjoying this kind of content. Also, I am on BookTok and Instagram, so definitely follow me on there for more videos like this. First up is the Mapel series, which is Icebreaker, Wildfire and Daydream. And this could be seen as quite controversial because I know so many people hate these books, especially Icebreaker, but I personally loved them. I think that these books aren't as smutty as people say they are, especially the last book, Daydream. That is kind of nothing like Icebreaker, because Icebreaker, I will admit, is quite smutty, but it's not like that intense. Each book follows such amazing storylines. The characters I think are really, really likable. They're all intertwined, so it makes it really interesting getting to see the friendship group grow as the books go on. Another thing which annoys me that no one ever mentions is these books are a lot deeper than they seem. Each book has a different, quite intense theme. Like, for example, Daydream follows Henry and he is learning about his ADHD diagnosis, how he's coping with that, and I love that. I love how each book goes in depth of the struggles that people follow for different things in their lives. But honestly, if you're just looking for a fun time, the Icebreaker series is definitely one you should consider. Next is the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I don't actually own the last book because I hated this series. I really don't understand the hype around these books. It felt like a Disneyland fanfic to me, which was very strange. I really don't like any of the male main characters. I feel like they're really toxic, but not in a bookish type of way and a red flag please run type of way. I honestly felt like I had to force myself to finish these books. But yeah, honestly, I feel like I go on and on about the reasons I didn't like these books and this video would be so long. One thing I did like though was the female main characters. They were the best parts of these books. So yeah, I personally don't think these are worth reading. Next is one of my favourite fantasy series of all time, the Cruel Prince series, also known as Folk of the Air. These books get hated on so much, but I really think it's down to a really common misconception. Most of the marketing and videos around these books really focus on Jude and Carden's enemies to lovers, the romance in this book, but honestly, it is such a side plot. That is the least of what these books are about. And then people end up reading them and being very confused when the romance doesn't come in till the second book and it's like a smidgen of romance. I personally think the actual fantasy and story and politics of these books are brilliant. They feel so nostalgic to me. I've said time and time again, they feel like I'm reading a childhood fairy tale, but obviously in a more grown-up way. So I will say, if you've seen these books and you want to read them purely for the enemies to lovers, I don't know if you will enjoy it as much as you think you will. However, please give them a chance because I feel like the story around the enemies to lovers is so worth it. But don't get me wrong, when you do get to the bits of Jude and Carden, they do have you giggling and kicking your feet because they are so good together. Next is Magnolia Parks, and loads of people hate this book, but I've spoken about it before and I think this book is so much fun. It's like an episode of Gossip Girl made in Chelsea all in one. I haven't read the entire series, but each book follows the lives of London elites and it honestly feels so real, like you're getting the inside scoop. This book specifically follows Magnolia and her toxic relationship and all the drama that comes along with that. I thought it was so interesting, so dramatic and so hooking. Yes, it does have a cheating trope, a miscommunication trope, there is toxicity, and that's what people don't like about these books, but honestly, give it a chance. Don't go in thinking it's a cute romance and I promise you will love it. Next is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey, and I was so disappointed in this book. I thought the cover was so cute and I was gonna love it. It was gonna be a light fluffy romance, but honestly I thought it was so boring. I'm someone who cannot not finish a book, but trying to get to the end of this book was painful. I feel like the characters didn't really have much chemistry. I thought the climax in the story was so overdramatic, I didn't really understand it. But yeah, honestly, if I could go back in time, I would not read this book again. Next is the Inheritance Game series, and I feel like for how much this book series is spoken about, it is so underhyped still. This book series, in my opinion, is genius. It follows a girl called Avery who inherits a billionaire's fortune, however she's never met the billionaire. It definitely, to me, gives Knives Out vibes. So if you liked those movies, I think you'll like these books. It has puzzles, jaw-dropping twists, a love triangle. I honestly can't praise it more. If you take away anything from this video, take away these books and read them. Next is Shatter Me, and I'm going to own up to it and say, before I read this series, I was such a hater of it. I don't even know why, because I didn't know anything about it, but I was so adamant I was not going to read this series, I wouldn't like it, it was overhyped. But then a friend ended up gifting it to me and I thought, okay, do you know what, I'm going to give it a go, and now it's one of my favourite series ever. I think partly why I was nervous about it and why other people get nervous about it is the dystopian setting. It's quite different, quite out there, but honestly it is is so hooking. Also, not forgetting to mention the amazing enemies to lovers between Warner and Juliet. You do kind of have to wait to book 3 to get into that a bit more, which I think people do struggle with, but the books up to that one are so worth reading. Definitely give this book series a try. Now that I've read it, I'm never going back. Next is Fourth Wing, and I cannot believe anyone could hate on this series. It is the best thing since sliced bread. I read this book so fast. In under 24 hours, I didn't want to stop. It had me sucked in immediately. It has dragons, enemies to lovers, really violent trials that have you on the edge of your seat. It's everything in a romantasy book I could have ever asked for. I feel like with a lot of romantasy books, the main character takes a while to be likable, but I think Violet from the get-go is so likable, and that's partly why this book is so easy to read. So I would definitely say this book is a must read. Next is Beach Read by Emily Henry, and if you asked me 2 years ago, I probably would say no, I'm not a fan of Emily Henry's books. However, now I devour anything she puts out, because this book changed the game for me. It was so brilliant, so relatable, funny, just everything that you want in a romance book. It's definitely a spring going into summer read, so in the next couple of months, if you haven't read this, definitely give it a go. Next is the Pumpkin Spice Latte. Next is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I know this is an absolute favourite around autumn fall time. However, don't let the aesthetic trick you. I thought this book was really bad. The aesthetic really sucks you in. I will say the aesthetic in the book is perfect. It's so vibey for the time of year you want to read this. However, the story just doesn't cut it, and the characters I think are quite boring. The story gets really boring. There's not a lot happening. There's no like intense moments. It just is very flat. So for as much hype as this book gets around the autumn time, I don't know if I would say waste your time reading it. Next is Mile High. And the one thing I will say is this book does not need to be as long as it is. However, I did love this book and I do recommend it. It is such a good spicy hockey romance. It's set between a hockey player and an air hostess, which I think is really interesting. I never read that before. The romance is really cute. In a way, it kind of reminds me of like a Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce thing. Even though it's not about football, it just gives the same vibes, and it was really fun. But yeah, there was just loads of parts in this book where I was like, that doesn't really need to be in there, and this book could have been so much shorter. Next is Then We Were Gone, and I remember when this was swirling all over BookTok and BookTube, and I was like, ha, I've already read this, and this definitely is deserving of all the hype it's getting at the moment. This thriller made me feel sick, but not in a bad way, if that makes sense. The story was so twisty but so sick at the same time. It kind of had the same vibes as Verity, but just way better. If you are looking for a deeply emotional yet absolute page turner of a thriller, this is such a good buy. And last but not least is The 7-Year Slip. And we all know I love this book. I think it's worth reading, of course I do. It is so magical, so romantic. It's about a girl who lives in a magical apartment and she meets someone from 7 years in the past and falls in love, and it's just so gripping. I honestly had to stop reading it for a second because I didn't want it to end. I literally have only praise for all of Ashley Poston's books. If you are an avid romance reader, I definitely recommend her as an author. All of her books are so worth the read. That is all the books that I definitely think are worth reading or not reading. Please remember that book opinions are so subjective. If you didn't agree with something I said in this video, that is totally okay. It was just my opinion. If you did enjoy this video and you liked these recommendations, please give this video a like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.